Hey guys, welcome back. How are you? I hope you are good and doing well. So, in the last lecture, we generated a new Rails 8.0 application and we just took a general walkthrough of the directory structure of Rails 8 application and we compared it briefly with the directory structure of Rails 7 application. Okay, now, and we also saw some significant changes introduced by the Rails 8. Okay, and now in this lecture, we will start working on one of the changes or one of the improvement introduced by Rails 8, which is the default authentication. Okay, but before starting on that, let's discuss that. For example, all the Rails versions so far before 8, let's say 7.x, what you have to choose if you want to authenticate your Rails application, no matter that the authentication is at very high level or at a very basic level. Okay, you have to depend on some gems like doorkeeper or device. Okay, and we majorly use device, and device is heavily used in authenticating Rails applications so far. Okay, no matter how complex your authentication system is or how at which configuration level you want it, you have to depend it on the device. But Rails 7 has introduced its default authentication module, which you can use to authenticate your Rails application at a very basic level, and you don't need the device. Okay. However, still a lot of the people, a lot of the developers are comfortable with device. So no matter if Rails provided that the authentication, most of the people will still propose the device as a better solution for authenticating the Rails. But and that can be that is right at some extent, but we have to learn that how to work with the default authentication provided by Rails. Okay, so in this lecture we will start working on that Rails authentication. So what you need to do first, that go to the terminal, and in the terminal open a new tab, and in this new tab you just need to open the new tab, and in this new tab you just need to run the command like rails g authentication. Okay, this is very similar to generating a controller, generating a model, generating a job, generating a rake task. Okay, or generating a migration. So you can say that authentication is a new generator in Rails 8, or introduced by Rails 8. Okay, and when you run this command like Rails G authentication or Rails generate authentication, you will see that there are some files has been created into the system. So here you can see that in app views you get passwords, files and session files, and in the model you see the current.rb, session.rb, user.rb, and in controllers you're gonna have session controller, and in the concerns you have authentication.rb, and in controller you also have the password controllers and some file in channel, some file in mailers, and so on. Okay, and there are couple of migration, one to create user and other is to create session. Okay, so first of all, let's generate the migration. So Rails DB migrate. Okay, this is the same as previous versions, just to run the migration. So after running the migration, you can see that it has created a table for users and for session. Okay, so first go to the uh, schema.rb. Okay, so here you can see that you have few tables, create table session and create table users. Okay, so and you can also check in the models. First of all, let's minimize these directories. Okay, now let's go to the models first. So here you can see that we have user model which is generated by our authentication module, and here you can see has secure password and has many sessions, dependent destroy, and it's normalizing the email address, and it's just whatever the email you provide it will convert it to the down case. Okay, and then we have the session model. In session model you can see that every session must belongs to a user, so there is a clear one to many relationship between session and user. Okay, because a user can has many session, I mean you can sign in into the system as number of times, and whenever you sign, a new session will be created for you and it will be assigned to you, and whenever you sign out, a session has been destroyed. Okay, and we have another model file which is generated, which is current. Okay, but this is not a active record model. Here you can see it is current attributes, and we will discuss about active support current attributes in some other lecture, but here just to verify that what this current. Okay, so what you do to find out the currently signed in user into the device tab, you use at helper method which is provided by device, that is current user, if user is signed in. Okay, so you get current underscore user or current underscore your device resource name. Okay, but here we will find current session. Okay, so with that current session we can identify that which user is logged in into the system. Okay, and here you can see that it delegates user to session allow nil true. Okay, and that's all, and that's all about the model. And here you can see that it has generated some view files. Here you can see that these are the password file for editing the password and for creating new password. Okay, and password mirror is also there, and you can also see that there is a session file that is for login form. Okay, so this is how it will work. And if you go to the routes, you can see there are some routes like resources session, resources password param token. Okay, so these are the resources has been added. Okay, and if you go to the controller you can see that this is the sessions controller. Okay, and here you can see some setting already that it has a new action, it has a create action, it has a destroy action. Now one can see that from where this code is already coming from. Okay, so like you can see that terminate session, redirecting new session path, or allow unauthenticated action. Okay, after authentication URL from, so from where these are coming. Okay, so if you open the application controller, here you can see that this was the original state of our application controller, but once we generated the authentication module we got this line written into our application controller. Okay, and you can open this authentication module, and which is already available in the concerns. Here you can see that this is the authentication.rb, and you can see that it is reusable across the controllers. Okay, and here you can see that it has some before action filter which is required authentication, and there is a helper method which is authenticated. Okay, and in the required authentication you can see either resume session or request for new authentication. And here you can see current dot session. Okay, so this is a way to find that which user is currently signed in. Okay, so using current dot session we can find the active session at right now on the browser, and using that session we can find that which user is currently logged in into the system. Okay, and here you can see request authentication after authentication URL. However, by default it is root URL, but you can mention whatever the URL you need here. Okay, and start new session for your user object, and then you can see something like that. And the terminate session, what it is doing, that it is destroying the current session. Okay, and then deleting all the cookies related to it. Okay, so this is a very basic authentication module implementation in the Rails. Okay, and here you can see that this is allow unauthenticated access. Okay, and now let's go to the session controller. So here you can see this method allow unauthenticated access. This is a class method in this authentication.rb, and what does it means, that you can access these controller methods without signing into the system or without having an active session. Okay, just like we have skip before action authenticate user in the device. Okay, so what that skip before action authenticate user in device do, that if you have that callback, or if you have that filter action mentioned in the controller, it is not asking you to sign in into the system in device. Okay, and in Rails 8 what you do, allow unauthenticated access, and then you have to mention your controller names. Okay, and we need this module here. We need this line in upcoming when we create resources users. Okay, because right now you will only get the form to sign in into the system. Okay, so you have to create users from the console. You don't have any form to create user. For example, here you can see you don't have any registration form just like device. Okay, so you have to build it manually or with some additional setting. Okay, so this is the basic of the authentication module. Now what we need to do, we need to check that whether this authentication module is working or not. Okay, so let's go to the browser, since we already executed the migration, and make sure to execute the migration before going to the browser. Okay, and just go to the server, and here what you need to do, you just need to make session new. When you do this you can see that this is a default form. Okay, and here you can use your users to sign into the system, but right now you don't have any system, any user. For example, let me sign in with this system ravising@gmail.com, and let's provide any password for it. When I click on it, okay, add secure password. Since we need to restart our server because we just added this authentication module. Okay, so let's restart this. Okay, now what you need to do, using and add the password. Okay, you will get the error message that try another email address or password. Okay, and you can see this validation message into the sessions controller as well. Here you can see that if session is not created successfully, you are on the new session path, and here what you are saying, try another email address for password. Okay, sorry, and let's end it. I made some mistake. Okay, now what we need to do to get this authentication working, so first we need to create a user. So open the rails console. Okay, and what fields we have in the user model, so go to the schema.rb. Here you can see in the user model we have email address and password field. Okay, so let's say user equal to user dot new, and here what we will do, email address, and then let's say ravi at the rate gmail.com or ravi.singh at the rate gmail.com. Okay, and then make a password, let's say. Okay, so you can see that a new user object with empty details has been initialized here. Okay, since the field name is password digest, you can still use password. Okay, like we have encrypted password field in the device, but we can use password from creating record from the console. Okay, so now what you need to do, user.save. When you do user.save, you can see that a user has been saved into the database, which is this email address and user. Okay, now what you need to do, user. So when you access this user, you can see id1, email address filtered, and password filtered, and so on. Now let's sign in into the system using this user. Okay, so just copy this email and go to the browser, and here what you need to do, ravi.singh@gmail.com, and provide the password, which is 6 times 1. Okay, so but still you will get an error right now if you click on the sign in. Okay, and let me show you that what error we will get. So when you click on the sign in, you will see undefined local variable or method root url. Okay, and this is because if you remember, when you generate a when you add or install device in an existing rails application, what device will recommend, that always have a root url in your system. Okay, or at some page that where you want to redirect. Okay, but right now we do not have any root url mentioned into our system or in our application, so we first need to mention our root url. Okay, so let's do that. So here what you can see, that if you in the logs you can see that the session has been created, I mean the user has been signed in into the system, but still we are seeing this error, that is undefined local variable or method root url for. Okay, so what we need to do, exit the console and generate a root url. For example, let's say rails g controller home index. Okay, and when you go to the routes.rb, okay, and here what you need to do, make it root home hash index. Okay, save it, and now go to the root url. Okay, you have to create new session. Okay, so let's do that again. For example, ravi.sing, and now you can see you are successfully signed in into the system. Okay, and you can see that a new session has been created for you as well. Okay, so there is another session which is being created. So this is how it works at a very basic level. So what we did so far, we generated the authentication module, and we created a user from the console, and we just sign it into the system, and we see how the session has been created. Now let me show you that what will happen, that how to access current user here, like who is signed into the system. Okay, so in the home index, for example, go to the views, and into the home index what you can see, that let's say if current dot session, okay, if it is, then what you need to do, let's say add a paragraph tag for example, and here signed in as, and then what you can do, current dot session dot user dot email address for example. Okay, so here you can see signed in as current dot session dot user dot email address, sorry, address. Okay, so this current session means that you are currently signed in into the system or not. If it is, or if you have any current session, okay, then you can see signed in as your email address. Okay, so let's click on that, sorry, let's go to the browser and refresh, sorry, yeah, refresh it here, and you will see signed in as, you can see ravishing@gmail.com. If you have name attribute in the user model, you can do that. Okay, now let's add a logout link here. Okay, so here what we need to do, that link to logout. Okay, and then what path you will provide. So here in the session controller you can see that we have destroy. Okay, so this is just destroy, so we need to use session path. Okay, or let's better find out the route from the here. So let's say rails routes grep session. Okay, and when you see, you can see that there is a delete request. Okay, so here what you need to do, session path. Okay, so here session path, and then data turbo method delete, and are you sure you want to log out. Okay, save this, and now what you need to do, just go to the browser and refresh the page. When you refresh the page, here you will see a logout link. Okay, and when you click on this, you can see that this request will come to this session controller's destroy action. Okay, for example, to verify, you can add a debugger here. Okay, so you can see terminate session. Now let's click on that logout link. So go to the browser, refresh it, and click on the logout link. When you click on the logout link, you can see we are seeing this turbo confirm message, which is, are you sure you want to log out? So click on OK, and when you click on logout, you can see that the debugger has halted the uh, execution. Okay, and now let's go to the next step. When you go to the next step at the terminate session, go to the next step again. So you can see that a session has been deleted where id is to action is destroyed. Okay, so the active session has been destroyed from the database. Now if you continue the execution, you can see that you are on again new sign in page now, and you can see that this is coming from this, so redirect to new session path. Okay, so here what we did, that we added the authentication module. Let me revise it quickly. So we added the authentication module. We know how to access current user using current session. Okay, and we also saw that what controllers and view files it generates, and the migrations, and we go through the migrations, and then we check the authenticator module, which is created by briefly, which is created by the rails 8.0. And in the session controller, we created a new resource from the user from the console, and then we log in into that user in the system, and then we see how to sign out and how to access the current user on the browser. Okay, so this is at a very basic level that how rails 8 authentication will work. Okay, now in the last lecture, in the next lecture, we will do something more about this authentication. That right now, if you can see, you just only have session form, but you do not have any new form to create a user, because Right now it is fine, we are in development mode, so we can create user from the console, but we do not have any form just like register form or sign up form. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to create a form for that, and then we will see how we can create user from the form, and then we can allow them to sign in into the system. Okay, so I hope you liked it. This is a very basic level introduction of the rails authentication, I mean rails 8 authentication, which is introduced by rails 8. Okay, so follow this and try to implement authentication in your rails app, and we will meet into the next lecture. Till then, tata, goodbye, take care, stay safe.